none, all those approving the agenda as submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? We do have public comment on the agenda item tonight. When you are called forward, please state your name and your address. You will have 3 minutes to address the room. And in the spirit of time, the person before you said what you were going to say, you can say ditto or I agree with him or her. You will be notified when you have 30 seconds remaining. That's pretty good, huh? Off the cuff. Our first presenter or speaker tonight is Nick.
Good evening. My name is Nick Weiss. My address is 3508 Evergreen Circle. I'd like to start by thanking the board for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I also want to thank all my fellow teachers for being here and supporting your association and taking your time out with your family and all the things you have to do for tomorrow. I came this evening to talk about the pension relief resolution, but I'm happy to say that the current administration and with the GCA, we successfully arrived at a resolution that we can all work with. The intention of that pension relief from the state was for teacher salary increases, and this resolution reflects that intention. So I encourage this board this evening to approve this resolution. We know we're all in difficult times, and we're trying to do what is best for kids. We can do just that by making sure that we have quality teachers in front of those students. We also can do this by providing competitive wages, benefits, and cost of living increases. So I ask for you to approve this resolution to set aside the funds from the pension relief for teachers' wages. Thanks.
Our next speaker tonight is Mr. Mark Felix.
I want to go last.
Sorry, you should have said.
Can you pull up the resolution, please?
Yes.
So people can see it. So we see the language. Some of us are visual learners.
Did you take a survey before class?
Well, thank you, board, by the way, for your time. I appreciate it. If you get way down in the bottom part, it says, so resolved and duly adopted. The anticipated dollar amount reduction may be used for salaries and or wage-related fringe benefits for teachers. That language was put in by Mr. Loeffner, and I just want to say thank you. It's a special thanks to Mr. Loeffner for his decision to write the resolution that we see tonight. By the way, I'm Mark Felix, GCA president. I'm a regular at this establishment. It honors the commitment made by our legislators and Governor Holcomb to increase teacher pay. Board, I sincerely hope that you vote yes tonight. I would like to thank the governor and our legislators for attempting to take this one small step in a long journey toward properly funding public education. And I thank them no matter how you vote tonight. They did take a small step here. I hope that we can all continue to work together to advance our school district through tough times. Finally, thank you to all of my GCA brothers and sisters for pushing all of us in this room to do better. Let's keep working to make Greater Clark the place where everyone wants to work and to send their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felix. John McLaughlin's up next.
Board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I believe you all know why we're here. And I believe you share some of our concerns, particularly with regard to the legislature and the governor's position that educator pay issues falls at the feet of local boards. You know and we know the absurdity of that position. We cannot afford to give that argument any credence. Therefore, we very much appreciate your willingness to change the language of the resolution from its initial proposal. And I ask that you please adopt it as it sits proposed now. 2 Weeks We recognize that the district is not as fiscally sound as it would like to be. It's taken some years to get there, and it should take some years to get out. I believe there is a hint of light in that tunnel. TIF money trickles in, and I emphasize trickle. More importantly, enrollment in Greater Clark is growing. And over the years, the most significant factors in increases to funding to local school districts is growing enrollment. With that in mind, I believe there's reasonable ways to both return to the desired financial position and to compensate educators fairly. I believe you understand very much your role in budgeting the dollars you receive from the state, and I think we can all agree that we're underfunded. But I also believe that this board and administration understand how desperately educators need to be compensated fairly, and I believe your changes in the proposal tonight indicate that. We appreciate that immensely. Thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you for the time.
Next to speak is Samantha Pierce. Nobody to say your name.
My name is Samantha Pierce. I live at 8002 Old State Road 60. That's Sellersburg. I've got plenty of rental property in this district, so I'm contributing here. As a GCEA building rep for Parkview Middle School, I just want to thank you all for hearing our concerns on the pension relief. I thank you for those teachers who couldn't be here tonight because they're working a second or third job. And I thank you for the teachers that are working the Parkview River Valley football game because they think that working those 5 events and getting their 3 or 4 on their rating will reap them some benefit in their salaries. And I also thank you for those of us who taught at Parkview from 2005 to 2012, which was under the leadership of Mr. Loeffner, because we now have a restored faith in his willingness to do what's right for teachers. We also had an outstanding dean during those years too, so thank you, Mr. Buckwalter.
The last scheduled speaker is Ms. Pam McCoy.
Hers was short and sweet, mine's a little bit longer. Bear with me. I'm Pam McCoy. I live at 7050 Bethany Road in Charlestown. Good evening, board, administration, Mr. Loeffner, teachers, lots of you, good to see you tonight, and others attending. I am Pam McCoy, a teacher and building rep at Jeffersonville High School. I come tonight on behalf of the 630 or so teachers who want to thank you for allocating the monies that our governor set aside for us for our salaries. In Governor Holcomb's State of the State address, he requested K-12 funding increases of 2% for the next 2 years. That's a 4% increase that equates to $432 million more than today. He went on to talk about how the state is in a financial position to use surplus dollars to pay off a pension liability that local schools currently pay, and frees up money to save all schools $140 million over the biennium. He then stated, quote, "I believe local school districts should allocate 100% of the $140 million to increasing teacher paychecks," unquote. The monies that have been set aside by the governor for Greater Clark is around $709,000. I believe that every one of our teachers more than deserve the approximately $1,125 this averages out to be when divided out among all of us. This is a start, but we have a ways to go, and I hope that that is forward with this new administration. I would like to share something that one of our school board members posted last year on their social media, and it's titled, "I Am a Teacher." I went to college, got a 4-year degree. I endured state testing. I was fingerprinted and background checked. I trained before, during, and after my training and education. I continue to train because I am a lifelong learner. Since full-time employment, I have sacrificed time, sleep, and family. I have sacrificed my own money year after year to provide for my students. I am a teacher. I have learned, lasted, endured change, endured further change, and endured orders to embrace the change. While you were sleeping, I have corrected papers and tests, researched and created, and endured harassing phone calls and emails with grace and professionalism. I teach the kids who live on your streets. I teach the kids that have been bailed out of jail. I teach the kids who have been kicked out of psychiatric centers because they were beyond help. I teach the kids whose home situations you could never imagine, even in your worst nightmares. I teach all students, no matter their socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, medical, psychiatric condition, good or poor attitude, religion, and family circumstances. When accused by the federal and state government for being part of a failing system, I endure name-calling, shame, and criticism simply because I am a teacher. I am professionally evaluated on test scores and not the amount of time and effort I put into my teaching. And despite of it all, I am a teacher and devoted to this calling. I want to end by thanking Mr. Loeffner, his administrative team, and the board for being willing to hear us and to change the language of the resolution to reflect what we as teachers deserve. May we continue to work together to bargain for what is best for all of us. I'm excited for the future, and I believe we're on the right track to #BeGreater for everyone involved in our school corporation. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you to all those who came to speak and to come to hear them. Next item on the agenda is the strategic plan that will be presented by Mr. Loeffner. You'll have 3 minutes to come to.
Multiply that by 30. No. Now, it is a long presentation. I will tell you that. We're about 60 slides, but I want to be very thorough as we go through this and try to clear up any misinformation that may be out there and make sure everybody understands where we're trying to go within this district. When I walked into this role as superintendent, we were given the task of trying to move this district in a positive direction in a lot of different areas. And one of the things that we definitely wanted to do right away was create a strategic plan. We started that process towards the end of May, 1st of June. We put a group of community members together, also staff members together that met 4 different times for well over 15 hours total to look at what we could do with a strategic plan to move the district forward in a lot of different areas. The feedback we got was excellent. Our staff members gave us excellent feedback. Our community members gave us excellent feedback. We tried to be very transparent up front about where we were at as a district in terms of finances, facilities, academics, and all those things, and how do we move forward from that. So we feel like we have a plan that's very solid. We also understand that some people will agree with a lot of things in this plan. Some people will disagree with some of the things in this plan. Right now, all we're trying to do, or all I'm trying to do tonight, is present it to the board, get feedback from them, also get feedback from community members. As you guys know, the week of the 23rd, we'll be at 4 different schools presenting this plan in our 4 different communities and get feedback from our community members. So I'm going to go ahead and get started going through this. Before I do want to thank all of the educators in the room for what you do, and also all of you that spoke tonight, and also the community members that have come tonight. It's very important that you give us feedback, speak out about where this is your district, just like we're all a part of it. We all want to make sure positive things happen in this district. So I appreciate you coming tonight. When you look at the strategic plan, first of all, we start off with a plan on the page. The mission was Greater Clark County Schools will prepare students for lifelong success. The motto, bridging excellence and opportunity. And then we wanted to look at our core values. Number 1 was strong relationships. All educators know if you're going to be successful, you have to build strong relationships with students, parents, your colleagues. That has to happen. We needed to be student-centered. Every decision we make should have a positive impact on students and our employees. And we need to be held accountable. I don't think any of us in this room are fearful of being held accountable for what we do, as long as it's a fair system. which we could debate long into the evening whether or not the system is fair in terms of what the state of Indiana has put out so far, especially here recently in the last 5 years. Whoops, let me go back. Hashtag, we are greater. You know, that's one of the things we looked at in terms of our plan, and we want to be greater in this district. Now, then we looked at focus areas. What were our 4 focus areas? One was climate and culture. The other was community partnerships. The third one was financial stability and responsibility, and then quality academics. Underneath those, we looked at 2 or 3 goals for each one of those items. And what I want to do is spend some time just going through them very quickly. Under the climate and culture, goal number 1 was maximize communication to cultivate internal trust. We feel like that's very important, that we have to get that trust of not only our staff, but also our community to make sure we can move forward in a positive direction. You know, and how are we going to do that? Create a joint newsletter with the superintendent and the GCEA president, which we've already done a couple of. Provide more professional development for classified building and district staff so that they feel part of our team. Sometimes they feel like they're not part of our team, and we make sure they feel like they're part of the team. When you look at goal 2, I think if you visited our website, we definitely need to redo our website and make it a little more friendly to navigate. That is something that I've heard a lot from a lot of different people, that we need to work on that. Task number 2 under goal 2 is increase marketing budget. Task number 3, create a joint newsletter or annual type report from the superintendent and the Greater Clark School Board. Number 4, increase school messenger usage at the school building level. We need to make sure we're communicating with our stakeholders and our parents. 5, utilize the radio TV stations to promote our promote and communicate our programs, our schools, and what we're doing well in this district. When you move over to the next area, community partnerships, when you look at goal 1, engage diverse partners, a lot of this work revolves around our academy work, you know, and tracking that, making sure we have good business partners and partners in the community to make sure we're building the workforce of tomorrow in terms of our students. You know, and number 1 reflects that, create a tracking system for partners. I won't go through all the A, B, C, D there. Number 2, create formal engagement flow charts for the district so that we can track our data. That's something the state's asking us to do. Number 3, create a list of who to target and where to reach out in the community. Who are our leaders in the community that will help partner with us as a district, you know, and do great things for our students and our staff. And number 4, recruit a diverse group of individuals that is more representative of our community population at work sessions. You know, that's something that's very important in terms of when we look at our staff and trying to hire diverse candidates, make sure that we really come up with a plan to do that for our district. When you look at goal 2, establish mutually beneficial outcomes. Number 1 task under that is research how to assess the needs of the community, create a needs assessment for the schools and the community, and utilize and prioritize the needs within that. And then you get into financial responsibility, financial stability and responsibility, and I'm going to go through that very quickly because there's several slides I'm going to talk about individually as we go through that. But one of the things that we would like to look at in terms of maximizing and sustaining enrollment, we know from migration reports from the state that we have lost students to other school districts. And one of the big questions in our strategic planning sessions was, how do we keep those students in our district and keep them from leaving and going to other districts? One of the things that we looked at is, you know, could we create a Plato credit recovery system that really brings in, almost like our own virtual school, that brings in students from other districts. Also maybe looks at bringing in homeschool students to where we create a platform for them. Because we've been asked about that already, you know, in terms of some of the homeschool organizations. So something that we could look at in terms of enrollment, that enrollment piece, and generating enrollment and dollars. The other item there, one of the things that we know in the migration report is that last year we lost about, well, it was a net loss of about 180 students to West Clark. And we feel like a lot of those students that we lost live in that Salem-Noble corridor. And that's been happening for 10 years since open enrollment came into play. And we need to address that. So one of the ways we feel like we can address that is give parents through that area a choice. Would you rather, if you're looking at another option in terms of taking your child out of the district, give them a choice where they can take their child either to Charlestown or Jeff schools. We feel strongly about that. We feel like that would keep students in our district and keep them from going to West Clark. So we're looking at that option in terms of adding an extra bus through that Salem-Noble corridor, giving parents a choice through those neighborhoods so that we keep them in our district. Because like I said, we've lost almost 250 students to West Clark in the last couple of years. The net loss was 180. And that's been going on for 10 years. And we need to stop that. Because we provide an excellent education for students, and there's no reason they need to go elsewhere. And I strongly believe that. Number 3, transport students to a school of choice. Now, once again, we can't get too crazy with that, because we can't transport students all over the district, because of the cost of transportation and busing. But we can certainly tie that in with number 5, which is all 5th and 8th grades parents complete an intent letter. In other words, if you're a 5th grade parent, we would like for you to complete an intent letter, just like all of you teachers in the room do, in terms of whether you're coming back next year or not. Ask all 5th and 8th grade parents to complete an intent letter. Are you going to send your 5th grader to a 6th grade Greater Clark school? Are you going to send your 8th grader to a Greater Clark high school? And if they're not, how can we maybe provide them another option to keep them in the district? Because what we currently know is that there are a lot of Greater Clark students that are getting on a bus at Eastside Christian Church and going to Rock Creek. Okay? So once again, we need to address that. If a parent's willing to drive their child to Eastside Christian Church, put them on a bus, and send them to Rock Creek, why are they not willing to meet us somewhere, put them on a bus, and they can go to Charlestown or New Washington if they want a smaller school setting? We have smaller school settings in our district, and so we need to look at that option, once again, to keep that enrollment in our district. And then number 4, going back to number 4, adjust, rebalance school boundary lines. We think that we are losing some students just because of our boundary lines. A good example are our middle schools, Parkview River Valley. Utica Elementary is a good example where you have students, when they leave 5th grade, have to decide. Their peer groups are split up. Some of them have to go to River Valley, some of them have to go to Parkview. And sometimes those parents decide on a third option and just leave the district because of that, because their peer groups can't stay together in their same middle school. So right now the dividing line is essentially 10th Street. Our feeder middle schools in Jeffersonville aren't by elementary, it's by a street. We need to look at that. So, and then the next goal, reduce cost of programs and facilities. And I'm not going to go through all those because I'll go through them individually through our slides. Goal 3, update and upgrade facilities, and I'm not going to go through all those because those are on individual slides also. And then when you look at our academic piece, optimize district level support to improve student achievement by increasing the percentage of students performing at or above grade level in literacy and numeracy to 75%. We feel very strongly that we have to create a tiered model for our district that provides more resources to those schools that need them the most. Okay? We have a lot of different schools. Many school districts are doing this now. They look at the at-risk population, those percentages, and they try to adjust accordingly in terms of providing resources to those students. And that's something we need to look at as a district. How do we provide resources to those schools that need it the most in terms of at-risk students, free and reduced lunch populations, high poverty rates, those type of things. So, and then some items underneath the academic piece. All Greater Clark academic teams will meet weekly to predict, plan, and problem solve the systems of literacy, numeracy, and pride. The academic team will bring forth updates and plans to the Greater Clark Cabinet for approval. The Greater Clark County Schools will increase the percentage of students with 0 office referrals by 2%. Greater Clark County Schools will increase student attendance to 96%. The next goal is reduce the achievement gap in literacy, numeracy, and pride by transforming teaching and learning to accelerate student achievement. The tasks within that goal are all schools will provide Tier 1 instruction aligned to the district literacy, numeracy, and pride frameworks presented with best pedagogical practices. All schools will have a system of intervention to serve Tier 2 and Tier 3 students in literacy, numeracy, and pride in order to narrow the achievement gap among all subgroup populations. Task 3, professional development will include collaboration among school staff members and quarterly articulation meetings for unwrapping literacy and numeracy standards. Task 4, professional development will include monthly pride team meetings in each building and quarterly district pride team meetings for alignment and development of brain-based social emotional learning. And task 5 will be the Academy of Greater Clark model will be implemented with a focus on pathway advisories, highly effective teaming, project-based learning, and student ambassadors. And those are our academic focuses, as we move forward. And you'll see that a lot of that's very similar to what we've been doing in terms of the academic goals. Now, the next thing I want to do is really paint a picture for you in terms of where we're at financially. Because I totally believe, in transparency, and everything needs to be on the table in terms of where we're at and why we're making decisions that we're making. Because, like I said, I'm trying to make decisions based on the greater good of everyone in Greater Clark. Students, employees, classified, certified, everybody. When you look at what's going on in the state, one of the things the state has done is created a monitoring system for school finances at the district level. And DUAB means the Distressed Unit Appeals Board are the ones that monitor school districts and their finances. And the indicators they look at are your average daily membership, your fund balances, your annual deficit surplus, your fund balance as a percent of expenditures, your tuition support, and percent of education funds spent on salary and benefits. Now, the two key ones are average daily membership and your fund balances. Thankfully, our enrollment's going up, so that's a good thing. However, our fund balances are not where they should be. They should be 8 to 10%. We're about 3.9%. We're about half of where we should be. And what happens if you get into a situation where they don't like the trend data on your finances? What does DUAB do, or what can they do? Many of you know that in some district, or in the state, they've taken over Muncie schools, Gary schools. They have the ability to do that. We're not looking at that. They're not looking at us in that way. But certainly, we don't want to be on any list that they're looking at in terms of financial distress. So when you look at the fiscal monitoring, here's what they can do. Level 1 is assessment. That's what they call level 1 assessment. They're just monitoring your indicators. And if they feel like you're headed in the wrong direction, they're going to send you a letter saying, we don't like the direction you're headed. You better get this turned around. We haven't gotten a letter from them yet, thankfully. But my concern is, and I think the reason we haven't gotten a letter from them is because our enrollment's going up. For those two main things they look at, enrollment and cash balance, and rainy day funds. Level 2, if they feel like you're not headed in the right direction and you're not addressing it, they're going to put you on a corrective action plan. They're going to make you come up with a plan and submit it to them and follow that plan. If you're not following that plan, they can immediately put you on a watch list. And then basically on a watch list, they're coming in and they're telling you what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. So none of those you want to be on. So we have some work to do to make sure that we get going in a positive financial direction so that we don't even get in the level 1 category where they're watching us closely. And as you guys know, I just wanted to put this on here just as a reminder to everyone here, that the funds have changed. You now have the education fund, that's the general fund, the debt service fund, which is driven by property taxes and our facility projects essentially. The pension debt fund, which has been in place for quite a while. Those other funds highlighted yellow taken out. The other big fund is the operational fund, which we'll talk about in a second. The rainy day fund is a big one. The last two, the referendum fund, referendum debt, we don't have either one of those funds in place right now because we haven't done a referendum. We don't have that referendum debt. And that could be a facility or building referendum or an operating referendum, could be either one. Now, where are we at district-wise? Our educational fund balance right now is $154,000. And remember, it should be 8 to 10% of the budget. So it really should be $2 or $3 million is where we should be. Okay, the operational fund is $43,488. And we're actually in the red in that fund because of some things that have happened with TIF districts, circuit breakers, tax caps, those type of things, because of state policy, essentially. And so we have some work to do in that operational fund. Our rainy day fund has gone down about $3 million in the last 8 months because of various financial decisions that were made in the past. Probably the one that's most concerning right now is the self-insurance fund. It has a negative balance. We just borrowed $1.2 million from the rainy day fund. You get paid up to date with the amount. And I'll show you more on that in a second. The operational fund, here's what the operational fund pays for. When you look at just things it takes care of, and it takes care of a lot. The big one I want you to look at is that last bullet point. Our utility costs in this district are $2.2 to $2.6 million per year. Duke Energy is getting ready to ask for a 15% increase on top of that. So that's another $250,000 that'll be added to that. Yeah. Here's the deal on, why can we not get ahead with our facility improvements? Okay, by the time you peel away all those costs that are bulleted, and you look at what money is left in the operational fund after you peel away salary, benefits, utility costs, there's essentially $1 million left to improve 20 school buildings. That's not going to go very far. And so people wonder, well, why do you have to do bonding all the time? Why do you have to ask for referendums all the time? Well, that's your reason right there. When you only have $1 million left to do any facility improvements, that's not going to get you very far. And so we're getting behind every year on facility improvements. And why is that happening? We talked about tax caps, TIF districts. I had Dr. Dykle look at something today in terms of if you add up all the TIF district money that is collected in the TIF districts in our school district, the amount that's taken away from schools is pretty substantial. If we got 15% like the law says we could get, we're talking between $2 and $3 million a year that we should or could get with that 15%. That we're not getting because TIF districts take it off. And I'm not standing here saying I'm against TIF districts because we all have seen the benefit of TIF districts with new parks, new roads, and all that. But I am standing here saying that I think as a school district, we should get our fair share. And frankly, we're not. And I just want to put that out there. And some other reasons, pension neutrality rules, our operational fund is suffering. So, educational fund, like I said, balance $154,000. Debt service, I want to say a few words about this. Our current tax rate is $1.13, and we'll talk about this as part of the facility plan. If you live in Greater Clark's district, you know that last March it jumped up. Everybody's assessed value and tax rate went up, including mine. So, it went up to $1.13. We'll talk about that in a second in terms of a plan to try to manage the tax rate and still try to get some facility improvements done without increasing taxes. This one I want to come back to, the self-insurance fund. Here's the issue we're dealing with right now, and we'll be dealing with this through December, is when you look at the premiums coming in each month, it's a little over $1 million in premiums. When you look at the cost of claims and prescriptions, it's $1.1 million to $1.2 million. The average monthly cost of the clinic is just a tad over $100,000. I put $100,000. The total monthly revenue is, like I said, a little over $1 million. The total monthly cost is between $1.1 million and $1.2 million. So we have a net loss in the self-insurance fund of anywhere from $36,000 to $136,000 a month, depending on claims and those type of things. And that, we got to fix that. You know, that's not a good financial plan in terms of how we're operating with that. And we are going to fix it. You know, but for the next 4 months, we're tied to this. You know, and we're going to have to manage this and try to get through the next 4 months. Financial stability, goals, and tasks. And here's where we're getting into some of the things I've already talked about. You know, making a bus, making sure we have an extra bus through the Salem-Noble corridor, doing intent letters for 5th and 8th grade students and parents so that we know where they want to go for middle or high school. And if they want to leave us, hopefully they'll give us the option to sit down and talk with them about other options within the district, so that they'll stay within the district instead of going to some other school district. School choice options, and adjust and rebalance school boundary lines. Now let's look at some cost savings and restructuring of programs where we feel like to improve our financial situation, we need to look at this. The first one is our preschool program. Last year, we spent a little over $1 million out of the education fund on preschool in salary benefits. And there's several different reasons why. The main reason is preschool should be a self-sustaining model. That's what most districts do throughout the state. Right now, currently, we're charging $5 a week for preschool. The other districts in the state charge $150 a week for preschool. So that's an issue. That's an obvious issue that we got to deal with. And I'll go through that here in a second. But our plan is to go back to 4 special education classrooms with 16 students each, and then go back to 8 general education classrooms with 20 spots each. The total seating capacity for preschool would be 224 students. Every elementary would have a preschool. Okay? The big change would be that those 4 special education classrooms will be certified special education teachers. The other 8 will be CDAs, Child Development Associates, that will pay $17 an hour. And I'll go through the numbers here in a second. We'll do a full day program instead of a half day program for the regular ed, general ed kids. The special ed students in preschool will still be on a half day program. Currently, we're doing a half day program. That's what we do in this district, is a half day program. And we're transporting all those kids on a half day program. Morning, midday, and afternoon, which is also a cost to us, a big cost, when we're transporting all those kids. Transportation will be provided for all students. Since it's a full day program, we already have buses out there in the morning and the afternoon, so we'll provide transportation. So the staffing will be 4 certified special education teachers, 8 classified child development associates, 16 paraeducators, which is 2 for each special education classroom and 1 for each regular education preschool classroom. The total cost of that, our estimate is $715,000. And then you look at the revenue that we think we can bring in on this by changing a few things. The goal here, my goal as a superintendent, is to make our preschool program self-sustaining and $0 coming out of the education fund, which would be an overall savings of $800,000, because that's what we're spending. We're going to spend this year about $800,000 for the preschool program. So all-day full pay price will be $150 per week. All-day free reduced lunch price will be $75 per week. The voucher applicant reimbursement through My Way Pre-K, your reimbursement through My Way Pre-K and the state grant for preschool is $170 per week. We've estimated sort of how many kids would fall in each category, And we believe that the revenue we would bring in would be about $760,000, which makes the program self-sustaining and doesn't take $1 out of the education fund. And so that's what we're looking at. We actually believe that once we get this going and start doing a really good job with this preschool program, we may be able to even generate more revenue than that in terms of the preschool program. Next item. One of the things that's been done over the last 5 or 6 years is several contracts have had days added onto them to the tune of $70,000 to $90,000 per year. And we're going to take a hard look at that. We believe that we can find about $70,000 to $90,000 in savings just by looking at that. And I have some examples up there, you know, academic coaches, academy coaches, deans, et cetera, those type of positions. We're just going to look at that. You know, I can tell you one group we're not going to mess with our counselors. We know they need that time and those extra days to do schedules and deal with things in terms of getting school ready and closing down school and that type of thing. But there's been a lot of days added on to contracts, and it's costing us as a district. And people may say, well, that's not very much. Well, to me, every little bit matters, is the way I look at it. And then one of the things that we're looking at cost savings is the River Valley pool closing. That pool is used very little. It's not used at our students. It's not used by our students hardly at all. And we're spending $90,000 a year to keep it going. And I'm going to show you something here in a few minutes that probably within the next 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to have to do to it what we're getting ready to do to Charlestown Middle School, which is Charlestown Middle School, we're looking at a $2.1 million fix of Charlestown Middle School's pool. And River Valley's pool is real close to that same condition. You know, so we believe we should go ahead and save this money, $90,000 a year, close that pool, do something else with that space. We will still have one pool open in each community, and that's the goal, you know, and obviously we want feedback on all of these items. And then the last item, looking at the related arts restructure and the cost savings that we can get from this restructure. Move to a model where related arts instruction at the elementary level is delivered by a classified specialist in that area. The same special area offerings will be in place for next year that we have this year, art, PE, music, technology. No related arts is going to be eliminated at the elementary level. There will be one certified teacher in each special area that would train the classified staff, create lesson plans, and monitor the fidelity of the programs at each elementary. This could be phased in over a 1 to 4 year period. Because one of the things that you see at the bottom, our goal is, you know, there's been a lot of talk about, well, we're just doing what a local district next to us has done. Actually, this has been done throughout the state in several districts. The district next to us cut those teachers or ripped those teachers. And we don't want to cut or rip anybody. You know, we want to find a place for everybody. And we are committed to that, to make sure nobody gets cut, nobody gets ripped. And so the other item there, investing some savings back into the programs to equalize material and equipment at all locations. That's a biggie there. Make sure all of our elementary schools have the equipment they need and things, those things they need to work with students. Now, basically, I put 3 different options up here. The first one on the related arts restructure is to replace just actual assigned related arts teachers. Keep 4 coordinator teachers, art, music, PE, and technology, estimating 2 at the top of the salary scale and 2 in the middle. Hire 24 classified specialists at $17 per hour for 181 days. The media specialist supervisor, media clerk structure stays the same as it is now. The potential total savings of that option is $832,000. That's option 1. Second option, replace all allotted related arts teachers through creative master scheduling. Some schools currently have a related arts allotted teacher serving another purpose, such as an intervention teacher purpose. This would replace all related art allotted teachers. Keep 4 coordinator teachers, art, music, PE, and technology. Hire 32 classified specialists at $17 per hour for 181 days. The media specialist supervisor, media clerk structure stays as it is now. The potential savings of that is $951,900. Option 3 is very similar to option 2, but you're basically changing the media specialist supervisor, media clerk structure to where you'll have a clerk, we'll have a media specialist that'll go around to each elementary, taking care of the media specialist part of the technology piece, and have a clerk replace that person that's currently the media specialist for the elementary schools. Keep 4 coordinator teachers, art, music, PE, and media technology. Hire 33 classified specialists at $17 per hour for 181 days. Savings from salary and benefits is just over $1 million a year. And that's if you do it all in year 1. Okay. What we also wanted to throw in there is 32 performance stipends for $300, which would cost us $9,600 to do some special things with the kids, whether it's art fairs or some of the PE stuff that elementaries used to do with kids, and try to make sure we have special events throughout the year. So, you know, when you look at, and I get it, this isn't a popular decision, I get it, okay, but based on where we're at financially, it's something we have to look at, something we want to get feedback on, and something, you know, the board's not going to make a decision on this tonight, but at some point in the future, you know, we're going to bring it to the board, and they're going to have to decide, do we want to pursue either one of these options? As you can see, the savings is very significant, you know, and one of the things I see, and one of the things I heard as I went around the district last spring and met with each faculty, is 2 things come to mind that I heard almost in every school. We need smaller class sizes, and as employees, we'd like to have higher salaries and better benefits. Well, how do we do that? You know, we know the state's not going to throw a bunch of money our way every year. So how do we become more efficient as a corporation so that we can free up money and do those 2 things? Now, the third one, of course, is how do we get a better financial position in terms of our cash balance, rainy day fund, and all that. Okay, so my goal is your goal. You know, I want to help as many teachers and as many classified staff in this corporation as I can get better benefits, better salary, and smaller class sizes. And that's why we're looking at this. Okay, the savings is very substantial in terms of looking at this model. So, moving on. How long have I been, Renee? Am I going way past my 30 minutes? Sorry. You're still awake, so that's all right. One item we also want to look at, it's sort of late in the game that we put this on, is investigate the potential savings of a retirement buyout. We have 89 teachers that could qualify for retirement. You know, and so we want to look at that. You know, it also has a pretty large potential savings there. So, you know, we'll talk about that as we go through bargaining and that type of thing. So, and then you look at the other big item is how do we improve our facilities? You know, when you look at that goal or task, you know, one of the things I want to do as superintendent is complete a 5-year facility plan, balance the upgrades between each of our communities, keep the tax rate stable. For the past 10 years, it has fluctuated up and down from 84 cents to 95 cents, you know, to $1.13. And it's been up and down in between all of those. And I think that's what people don't like in our community. Nobody likes surprises. They don't like the tax rate jumping up all of a sudden. I think all of us would like to have a stable tax rate. We know what it is. And we're going to work on that to try to get that model in place. Reduce energy costs in the district. You guys saw how much it cost us for utilities. And work on that issue to try to save money. Increase safety and security of our facilities. And then in 2021, complete a demographic and new facility study to help guide us towards year 5 of our facility plan, which I'll talk about here in a second. Now, as we go out into the communities, you know, I thought it was very important. You know, this group did a presentation to the board this summer about debt financing, tax rate, assessed value, interest rates. and what you can do in terms of as a district based on those items. So this group is going to come in and help, with the community presentations to try to paint a picture to our community on how can we get these facility projects done without, negatively impacting the tax rate. They did a very good job of explaining that, this summer at the board meeting, and I think they'll do a very good job, in the community meetings, explaining how we can do this and how we can manage the tax rate. Now, here's the facility plan, and it's ambitious, I will tell you that. Okay. First year, we want to spend $14,875,000, right at $15 million. Second year, we want to spend $10,400,000. That's without any energy savings bonds or anything like that in terms of LED lighting and stuff like that. We're looking at potentially doing energy savings contract. We're just looking at investigating that right now. If we do the energy savings contract, that 3.1 million won't be needed as part of that. If we don't, then you would add that 3.1 to the 10.4. In 2021, 2022, we're looking at $9,250,000. The energy piece of that would be $1.65 million. Year 2022 and 2023, $7.52 million. The energy piece would be $2.65 million, which would be added to those amounts if we don't do an energy savings contract. And then year 5, I strongly believe that will be the time we have to look at a referendum. Okay, when you look at the growth of our district, the homes that are being built, the potential crowding in some schools, the potential age of some of our schools, we're going to have to take a look at that. And that's why in 2021, I want to do a demographic study and a new facility review or study so that will direct our work in terms of where we want to go with a potential referendum. Now, let me give you a little more details. In year 1, these are the projects we want to do. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because year 1, I have individual slides for each of these, for each school that's being impacted. Okay, the $14,875,000, a big chunk of that is at the transportation facility. If you've been down there, you know it needs a whole lot of work. And if you haven't been down there, go drive by. Or talk to a bus driver, or talk to Chad Shank right here. He'll tell you what poor condition it is in. All these items that I'm talking to you about are tied right back to the 2014 facility study. I can even give you the page number on each one of these items. That all these things in 2014 were brought to our attention in terms of, hey, these things need to be addressed. And frankly, a lot of these things on this list, in terms of dealing with the high schools and the athletics, go back to 2008, 2010, when the high schools were renovated. Because a lot of these things were supposed to be fixed at the high schools and they weren't touched. Okay, so when you look at the facility study, sort of said this: in every possible way, the facility is unacceptable and functionally inadequate down there. And it is. If you've been there, take some time, go down there and walk around, and you'll see how bad it is. It originally was a bakery. The site is small and insufficient. It also is used as storage by auxiliary services. Next item. Well, here's some pictures of it. We didn't really take any inside. We did have some more, but for the sake of time, I wanted to not have too many pictures. It's an old facility. It's not serving us very well. Next item is the Charlestown Middle School swimming pool. Like I said, we want to have one pool in each community. The cost to fix the Charlestown Middle swimming pool will be around $2.1 million. The piping's corroded. We must update the code for drainage. And this is Charlestown High School's competition pool. So it is something that's needed. Next item, well, here's some pictures. And here's the piping you can see. And some of the piping you can stick a pin through it. So if we turn the water back on right now, Charlestown Middle School would be flooded in no time. Okay. Charlestown High School. This is the list of things we would like to do at Charlestown High School. We would like to look at doing a turf football field, redoing the track, and I'll show you why here in a second, redoing the tennis facility, redoing the high school bleachers, press box, and scoreboard. Create a safety net for baseball and softball. If you've been out there, those fields are right next to each other. And if you're sitting in the at the softball field and there's a baseball game going on, there's a good chance you may get hit in the back of the head. And we need to do something there to fix that. And then just fencing for these projects. And here are some pictures. Here's some bullet points, more information. The bleachers out there are well over 30 years old. The building underneath the bleachers has been condemned for over 10 years. The top coating on the track is cracking and coming off, down to bare asphalt in many places. The tennis courts have settlement cracks all over the court. Some are over an inch wide, which you would trip over if you're trying to play tennis. We have spent over $25,000 this last 2 years patching these tennis courts. If you want, the cost of maintaining Bermuda grass is very expensive at both high schools, upwards close to $50,000 a year for both high schools to maintain Bermuda grass. And then baseball and softball safety nets are needed. I just explained that in terms of the safety issue. And if you're a baseball fan, you see that in the major leagues right now too, where people are getting hit. We don't want anybody to get hit. Here's some pictures. You can see the turf, here. The maintenance on this is very costly. Here's the track. If you look real closely in lane 3, you see the crack running all the way down through there, and that's where the top coat's peeling off. It's all the way down to asphalt. Tennis courts, you can see, this was just after they were patched. But what happens during the winter time, the freeze-thaw cycle, you get big cracks in them, and it's all over the place. Every court has cracks in them all over the place. And the bleachers, like I said, they're over 30 years old. The building underneath is condemned, can't be used. The space is very tight. It's just not a function, its life has come to an end, in my opinion. Just a couple more pictures. Jeff High, we're looking at doing football and turf. We're doing the track, bleachers and press box, and then the fencing. Show you some picture or some bullet points here. The bleachers at Jeff High are over 40 years old. The building underneath the bleachers is in very poor condition, and sewage backs up into the building under the bleachers. Top coating on the track needs to be replaced and painted. And once again, the turf, Bermuda grass is very expensive. And here's some pictures. The interesting thing about this picture is I think those goalposts are from the 70s, I believe. Which makes it sort of neat. When you look at the field and the bleachers and the press box is too small for a school the size of Jeff High. I mean, that's way too small. And then you look at the bleachers, and over 40 years old, you can see all the rust on the bleachers. It sort of looks like the second story bridge over there before it was painted. We won't paint it, but we have a rough estimate is that if we wanted to sandblast all that and repaint it, it would be $300,000 or $400,000. Okay, and so we have some decisions to make there. And that building underneath, like I said, it's in poor condition. And this is the pylon that some of that weight is sitting on. This has since been repaired. Okay, but that's what happens to concrete over a 40-year period. It's going to start eroding. So, it's something we need to take a look at. Okay, New Wash, middle high school, bleachers, radios, New Wash middle high generator. Once again, the basketball bleachers out there are over 30 years old. They're not up to code or ADA compliant in terms of the rails up the middle of the bleachers. No rails for the steps, and there's no backup power in New Wash middle high because the generator does not work, and we need to fix that. And there's a picture of the bleachers and the generator. And then we're going to do some smaller things like Pleasant Ridge Elementary culvert repair. We have an issue behind Pleasant Ridge where water stands, and we need to fix that for the residents and us. And then JJ Elementary HVAC, PA system, alarm, and dishwasher, which fall into a lot of different categories in terms of needs, safety, and all those different things you could come up with. Here's some pictures of the units up there that are very, very old and need to be replaced. And then TJ, HVAC carpet, access controls, radios, Bridgepoint, elementary bleachers, PA system, gym floor repair. And then we get into year 2. And I don't have individual slides for these, I'll just highlight a few items. The first one on the list is adding classrooms to Utica Elementary. We know that there's 500 and some homes that are going to be built right over here in Ellsworth County, and so we need to get ahead of that, and make sure we have classroom space for those students. Some of the other big items, there's a lot of paving on the list. If you've been around to our schools, you know how bad paving is in some of our schools. Potholes everywhere, and we need to address it. Parkview Middle HVAC and Charlestown High School locker room project that we need to get taken care of. Right now, the home team and the visiting team have to just stay out there in the weather, or the visiting team has to run inside the school in the gym and creates a total mess in there, especially if it's raining and muddy. And there's no locker room for them to go to out there by the field. Then you look at the energy savings piece, which would be $3.1 million if we want to add it to the overall year 2 cost. Year 3 of the plan, some of the highlights, once again, there's some paving, carpet. Bigger item there is Jeffersonville High School locker room, weight room, River Valley pool conversion, that if we're not going to use that pool, we need to convert it into some kind of space, whether it's classrooms or something. Once again, we're growing as a district, there's a lot of homes being built, and River Valley is already sitting at about 950 students, and they may get a lot more, so we need to think ahead in that regard. And then the other thing I have in here, we're going to do the facility review and the demographic study is, that $1 billion there, well, we need to buy land somewhere, for the referendum year. We may need to buy some land, to do something. And then, once again, this is the energy savings piece that'll either be added to that cost or we'll do an energy savings contract. And year 4 gets into a lot of different miscellaneous items that, as you guys know as educators, that are in schools that have in some rooms new carpet and in some rooms carpet that's 30 years old or 40 years old, that we need to try to correct that, so that it looks, up to date, and it's fixed. We're also the 3 middle schools, in terms of their bleachers out on their football field, we need to take a look at that, and make sure that we're up to standard there. And then the energy savings piece. And then year 5, that's where I think we need to look at doing a referendum based on what the demographic study tells us and the facility study tells us. And we'll let that direct our work. Now, there's things out there from the 2014 study that we know came about from that study, such as we know TJ Elementary is our oldest elementary. JJ is, I think, our second oldest elementary. There's a couple other elementaries that need a lot of work, and when we get to this 5th year and we want to do a referendum, do we look at elementaries? Do we look at, if we get a lot of growth between here and Charlestown, do we look at building a new middle school somewhere? There's going to be a lot of things on the table that we'll have to look at, but once again, we're going to let the facility study and the demographic study direct our work and give us the direction we need to go. So I know I went way over, and I apologize for that, but I thought it was important that I give you as much detail as possible. And so I'm sorry for keeping you here real late, but I respectfully present this to the board. Like I said, we're going to go out and do some community meetings, try to get as much feedback as we can. But the plan is then to come back to the board in October, and ask the board to approve, what we want to do, with some of these ideas. So that is all I have. Thank you.
As a result, everyone has about 30 seconds to present. So,
Sorry.
I was told, Dr. Michael, fund monitoring report. Now you have 25 seconds.
I have 5 slides. It will take less than 2 minutes. In the education fund, good afternoon, and everybody else. In the education fund for the month of August, we collected $5,701,000 in our state tuition support. Overall, we collected $5.743 million. In expenditures, we spent just $6.6 million for the month because it was 3 pays. And we have that twice a year. So we ended our cash balance at 4.6 million as of the end of that month. We're projecting a December 31st cash balance of 771,000. Don't forget, I have a lot of money that I borrowed according to the education.
We have it for now.
Yes, thank you. Neither have I. Debt service, there was no activity. Ending cash balance is just over $4 million. Pension debt, no activity, just over $143,000. The operation fund is the next big one in August. Again, this is basically property, bank, excise that funds this fund. And we do get a monthly receipt. That's local option income tax that everybody pays if you work in Clark County. So we get $68,186 there. So we brought in a little over $130,000, but we spent around $1,953,000. And the cash balance is $2.2 million as of the end of August. Our projected cash balance has been coming down. The deficit was over $2 million. We're down to $870,000 is what we're currently showing. I now have cut off invoices to certain vendors that don't need the money because they're a monopoly. I won't name those as the accounts. The rainy day fund, there was no activity. The borrowing, the $1.2 million came out in September, so that will show up on the next report. So we're showing $3,599,000 as the end of the cash balance. So I will entertain any questions you may have.
Did I hear you say that the balance in the rainy day fund does not reflect?
Correct. Because that came out in September. This is through August. That'll show up in the next week.
Any other questions, Court? Thank you, Dr. It brings us to our consent agenda. Board, do you have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Do you have a second? Thank you, Mr. Buckwalter. Questions? Comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And I'm going to stop because we would introduce.
I want to talk to you.
Concrete.
On the personnel report tonight, we want to recognize an individual that's stepping in. Well, he really stepped up in a time of need, and from what I understand, has done a great job with the team there at Jeffersonville High School and the student athletes. And so we want to recognize Chris Moore, who will be our new head basketball coach at Jeffersonville High School. Thank him for stepping into a tough situation and really doing a good job in managing, that piece of it. So thank you. And for waiting an hour.
I bet you guys are all so excited to be here tonight. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Gifts to Building is next by Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Okay, our gifts to buildings this month, we have several elementary, middle, and high school. And the total this month is $6,970. So I'd like to really thank a lot of people and organizations who donate money for different projects various schools. And I'd like to make a motion to accept the gifts to buildings as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Patrick. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Questions, comments, questions? All those in favor of accepting gifts to buildings as submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is a resolution for expenditure of pension relief.
Yes, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019, $150 million was appropriated from the state general fund for the 1996 account of the public retirement system. The Indiana Public Retirement System reduced the employer contribution rate as of July 1st, 2019 to the 1996 account. After July 1st, 2019, and before October 1st, 2019, the governing body of each school corporation is required to determine the amount, the dollar amount of the reduction in the school corporation employers' anticipated dollar amount. The anticipated dollar amount of the reduction in the school corporation's employer contribution is approximately $709,000. The anticipated dollar amount reduction shall be used for cash flow and health insurance premium, shall be used for health insurance premium and salary increases for teachers for the 2019-2020 school year. The board, the administration is recommending that you approve the resolution as presented and then already approved by the GCCS.
Thank you, Dr. Nagel. Board, do I have a motion to approve the expenditure of pension relief funds? Madam President. Thank you, sir.
Madam President, I recommend the approval of the resolution as presented for the expenditure of pension relief funds.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Do I have any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of approving the expenditure of pension relief funds as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Next on the agenda, item on the agenda is acceptance of the SRO.
Good evening, Board. What we're asking for tonight is approval of this Indiana Secured School Safety Grant. Since its inception in 2013, there's been $72 million that's been paid out through a grant process to school corporations in Indiana. We are asking approval of a 100% match of $100,000 tonight. So therefore, it's an increase of $50,000 last year, and all the years prior we've been able to receive only $50,000 additional funding, and a different competitive grant process allows us to receive $100,000, which we will then match with that $100,000. We're already spending this money to cover the cost of our school resource officers. And I'd like to take an opportunity to thank just one of the many that are in our district. So special thank you and all of the other SROs in the district for what they do for us.
Thank you, Board. Do I have a motion to accept the grant?
I would like to move that we accept the SRO grant in the amount of $100,000.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Questions or comments? All right, all in favor of accepting the SRO grant, $100,000, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Next on the agenda is Title I, Part D, Juvenile Detention Center Agreement, presented by Dr. Perkins.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, everyone. I would like to ask that you approve this agreement as part of our Title I Part D grant application process. It requires an annual renewal of this agreement for the Juvenile Detention Center work that we do. It's in the amount of $26,756.82.
Thank you, Dr. Hartledge. Board, do you have a motion for this agreement?
I move to approve the Title I Part G program.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Oh, told you, Ms. Hawkins. Questions or comments, Board? Sorry, get going on. All right, very nice. All those in favor of approving the center agreement for the Juvenile Detention Center Part D Title I, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And Title III grant funds, again, Dr. Rutledge.
Yes, Board. Title III supports our English as a second language program. We are asking permission to accept the Title III federal grant in the amount of $81,774. This will allow Greater Clark to hire teachers in order to assure that students with English as a second language are provided direct English language instruction. It will also provide parents with some family involvement activities as well as instructional materials and professional development for the staff.
Thank you, Dr. Rutledge. Board, can I have a motion to approve the grant funds for Title III?
I move that we have accepted the grant funds for the Title III, the amount of,
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Questions or comments? All those in favor of accepting the grant funds for the Title III presented by the Department Supervisor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And NESP grant fund?
Yes, Board. This is a non-English speaking grant. It is the state grant. And we are asking permission to accept this grant in the amount of $252,180. This grant is also to be used for students with English as a second language. It's used to provide the students and teachers instructional materials, professional development, and parent involvement activities.
Thank you. Board, can you have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to move that we accept the NESP grant, the $252,180.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Thank you, Dr. Clay. Questions, comments? All those in favor of accepting the grant funds for the NESP program, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. And the last item on the agenda is the contract with the State Board for Professional Development.
Yes, Board. We're very excited about this. As I mentioned last time, this is the season of grants. And part of that, in order to start a new grant, you have to kind of go through and look at the last grant because they carry over. And so I found some money that we needed to spend and did an amendment. This grant, this opportunity is with Mr. David Nagel. He works with Corwin and the research of Dr. John Hattie, who is a world-renowned researcher in the field of education. And he is going to be able to come here and present to our administrators. We will do this in partnership with New Albany Floyd County Schools. They'll be splitting the cost with us. And he'll be presenting the visible learning systems as a professional development for our staff. And this is an improvement model of professional learning. It's based on one simple belief that every student should experience at least 1 year's growth over the course of the school year. And we talk a lot about technical change in our district. That's all the things that require us to do things differently. And this is adaptive change, which requires us to think differently with the tools and processes that we always use. But how do we think about that from the different lens that have the greatest impact with our students to ultimately improve achievement? So the power of visible learning research lies not only in helping educators understand how much impact influence has on student achievement, but also in understanding the impact relative to other influences. Educators who understand which influences have the greatest impact on achievement can make strategic decisions based on evidence to maximize their time, energy, and resources. So the cost of this is costing us $4,992.25. This is split between New Albany. The presentation portion of this is $3,750. It will be an all-day event for our administrators, followed by a leadership academy that we will invite our members of our building leadership teams from 4 to 6 in the evening. And it also includes $1,198 for 40 copies of a book that goes hand in hand with this that we'll use as a resource and do a book study to support our work. And then we've included the agenda for the day as well. This will be funded from 2018-19 Title I funds that we did an amendment for that has been approved, and it must be encumbered by September 30th.
Dr. Rutledge, board, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, before I motion, is that 95 cents or is it 25 cents?
Actually,
then you can disagree with me.
So you're correcting it later.
Yeah, that's just how the.
Okay, I move that Madam Chair, I move that we approve the contract with Dave Nagel forward for professional development.
Thank you, Dr. Baker.
You're welcome.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Burkholder. Dr. Baker.
Is that 95 cents or 25 cents?
It was 95 cents.
Thank you.
If I said 25, I just can't see it, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
That's unacceptable. I never expect you to make that kind of a mistake.
70 cents.
Other questions or comments?
What they're good, you know what I'm saying?
All those in favor of approving the professional development contract with Dave Eagle work forward, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Dr. Burkholder. We have no public comments on non-agenda items and reports requested or comments this week.
And I do have a report. Dr. Geisel, Mr. Lochner, Dr. Clayton, and myself all represented Greater Clark at our joint legislative meeting last Friday. Some really good things came from that meeting. Probably the one that we all need to know about is there is going to be a collaboration from the higher levels of the Indiana Public School Superintendent Association, the Indiana School Board Association, and the Indiana School Teachers Association are all going to be invited to collaborate in figuring out the best way to lobby our legislators to give up 15% of this TIF money back to our schools. We've been trying to do this for 3 years in lots of different ways. And every single time we do, the Association of Cities and Towns comes out real hard. So we're trying to figure out how we can all come together and come out a little bigger. Maybe make a statement as to how important we feel this money is for public education. So I encourage you guys, when you get an email from your ISCA or your ISBA or your IAPSS, respond and find a way to get involved. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to thank you all for coming out. It's huge support. It's awesome to see and understand that there's some real working together. Progress rarely, happens without some conflict. And I appreciate the fact that there's not tension in the air. And it's awesome, and I appreciate you all very much. And appreciate the board. Ms. Gilkey, thank you for your comments there about the legislature. It's very we all need to be involved. Because, when you're talking about 15%, and that's $2 to $3 million, I don't know. Where's that money going? I'm sorry, I just stopped right there.
We'd be here a lot longer talking about that.
I would also like to thank everyone for coming out. Just to echo a few points, Ms. Gilkey there. It's time that we do stand up to get the tax dollars that we have lost. It's a new day, it's a new opportunity, and we need to put the pressure where the pressures are. I'm tired of hearing legislators say that educators are not doing their job. I see a lot of people out here that were educated in the state of Indiana, so that means somebody did a good job. I resent that. Anytime we talk about money, we don't do a good job. We don't allocate the funds, but we're not getting the funds. So again, as Ms. Gilkey said, if you get emails, it's time that we go on the attack to get what is due for the children and the teachers of this school corporation. Thank you.
Ms. Hawkins.
Again, just thank you all for being here. I admire you, I'm one of you. And so, we just need to step it up and just keep putting the pressure on. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but it's what it has to.
Thomas Paine once said, "The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." I do thank you guys for being here and for speaking out. I do appreciate the emails. I feel like with everything, the feedback, even though in disagreement, has been very constructive. And I just appreciate your all's professionalism and your hard work. And I hope that you're rewarded. Mr. Walker?
All right, thank you for coming tonight and bearing with me on that long presentation. I want to remind you, just next week, we'll be, out in the communities, Monday at Parkwood Elementary, Tuesday at Washington High School, Wednesday at Charlestown High School, and next Thursday at Jeffersonville High School. It'll be more interactive. Obviously, I'm going to present the information, but I'm going to stay there and take questions as long as I need to stay there and take questions. If that's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, then that's what we'll do. So I invite you to come out next week and ask questions, and I promise you it'll be more interactive. Had a lot of material I had to go through in a short amount of time, which turned out to be a long amount of time.
Mr. Wagner?
But thank you for what you did.
For clarification, are those meetings going to be held in the cafeterias, the libraries?
We're working on one final change location, because we're not sure the numbers that will come.
There'll be signs on the doors.
Yeah, but we'll post that in social media.
Ray? I will be at the Charlestown one, but I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock because it's my bedtime. So if you just wrap your.
I'll try. I'm going to stay as long as I need.
Okay, well, I'll bow. Now I just need a motion for adjournment, board.